Conclusion from Life and Letters of Robert Browning, by Mrs. Sutherland Orr. Read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson. A few words must still be said upon that purport and tendency of Robert Browning's work which has been defined by a few persons, and felt by very many, as his message. The definition has been disputed on the ground of art. We are told by Mr. Sharp, though in somewhat different words, that the poet, qua poet, cannot deliver a message such as directly addresses itself to the intellectual or moral sense, since his special appeal to us lies not through the substance, but through the form or presentment of what he has had to say. Since, therefore, by implication, in claiming for it an intellectual as distinct from an aesthetic character, we ignore its function as poetry. It is difficult to argue justly where the question at issue turns practically on the meaning of a word. Mr. Sharp would, I think, be the first to admit this, and it appears to me that in the present case he so formulates his theory as to satisfy his artistic conscience, and yet leave room for the recognition of that intellectual quality so peculiar to Mr. Browning's verse. But what one member of the aesthetic school may express with a certain reserve is proclaimed unreservedly by many more, and Mr. Sharp must forgive me if for the moment I regard him as one of these, and if I oppose his arguments in the words of another poet and critic of poetry, whose claim to the double title is, I believe, undisputed, Mr. Roden Noel. I quote from an unpublished fragment of a published article on Mr. Sharp's Life of Browning. Browning's message is an integral part of himself as writer. Whether as poet, since we agree that he is a poet, were surely a too curious and vain discussion. But some of his finest things assuredly are the outcome of certain very definite personal convictions. The question, Mr. Sharp says, is not one of weighty message, but of artistic presentation. There seems to be no true contrast here. The primary concern of the artist must be with his vehicle of expression. No, not the primary concern, since the critic adds, for a poet, this vehicle is language emotioned to the white heat of rhythmic music by impassioned thought or sensation. Exactly, thought it may be. Now, part of this same thought, in Browning, is the message, and therefore it is part of his primary concern. It is with presentment, says Mr. Sharp, that the artist has fundamentally to concern himself. Granted, but it must surely be presentment of something. I do not understand how to separate the substance from the form in true poetry. If the message be not well delivered, it does not constitute literature. But if it be well delivered, the primary concern of the poet lay with the message after all. More cogent objection has been taken to the character of the message as judged from a philosophic point of view. It is the expression or exposition of a vivid a priori religious faith, confirmed by positive experience, and it reflects, as such, a double order of thought, in which totally opposite mental activities are often forced into co-operation with each other. Mr. Sharp says, this time quoting from Mr. Mortimer, Scottish Art Review, December 1889, His position in regard to the thought of the age is paradoxical, if not inconsistent. He is in advance of it in every respect but one, the most important of all, the matter of fundamental principles. In these he is behind it. His processes of thought are often scientific in their precision of analysis. The sudden conclusion which he imposes upon them is transcendental and inept. This statement is relatively true. Mr. Browning's positive reasonings often do end with transcendental conclusions. They also start from transcendental premises. However closely his mind might follow the visible order of experience, he never lost what was for him the consciousness of a supreme eternal will, as having existed before it. He never lost the vision of an intelligent first cause, as underlying all minor systems of causation. But such weaknesses as were involved in his logical position are inherent to all the higher forms of natural theology, when once it has been erected into a dogma. As maintained by Mr. Browning, this belief held a saving clause, which removed it from all dogmatic, hence all admissible grounds of controversy. The more definite or concrete conceptions of which it consists possessed no finality for even his own mind. They represented for him an absolute truth in contingent relations to it. No one felt more strongly than he the contradictions involved in any conceivable system of divine creation and government. No one knew better that every act and motive which we attribute to a supreme being is a virtual negation of his existence. He believed, nevertheless, that such a being exists, and he accepted his reflection in the mirror of the human consciousness as a necessarily false image, but one which bears witness to the truth. His works rarely indicate this condition of feeling. It was not often apparent in his conversation. The faith which he had contingently accepted became absolute for him from all practical points of view. It became subject to all the conditions of his humanity. On the ground of abstract logic he was always ready to disavow it. The transcendental imagination and the acknowledged limits of human reason claimed the last word in its behalf. This philosophy of religion is distinctly suggested in the fifth parable of Ferishta's fancies. But even in defending what remains, from the most widely accepted point of view, the validity of Mr. Browning's message, we concede the fact that it is most powerful when conveyed in its least explicit form. For then alone does it bear, with the full weight of his poetic utterance, on the minds to which it is addressed. His challenge to faith and hope imposes itself far less through any intellectual plea which he can advance in its support, than through the unconscious testimony of all creative genius to the marvel of conscious life, through the passionate affirmation of his poetic and human nature, not only of the goodness and the beauty of that life, but of its reality and its persistence. We are told by Mr. Sharp that a new star appeared in Orion on the night on which Robert Browning died. The alleged fact is disproved by the statement of the Astronomer Royal, to whom it has been submitted. But it would have been a beautiful symbol of translation, such as affectionate fancy might gladly cherish if it were true. It is indeed true that on the 12th of December a vivid centre of light and warmth was extinguished upon our earth. The clouded brightness of many lives bears witness to the poet's spirit which has departed, the glowing human presence which has passed away. We mourn the poet whom we have lost far less than we regret the man, for he had done his appointed work, and that work remains to us. But the two beings were in truth inseparable. The man is always present in the poet. The poet was dominant in the man. This fact can never be absent from our loving remembrance of him. No just estimate of his life and character will fail to give it weight. End of conclusion from Life and Letters of Robert Browning, by Mrs. Sutherland Orr. End of Robert Browning, 200th Anniversary Collection, Volume 1. De Gustibus, by Robert Browning, read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson, in Hazelmere, Surrey. Your ghost will walk, you lover of trees, if our loves remain, in an English lane, by a cornfield side a-flutter with poppies. Hark! those two in the hazel coppice, a boy and a girl, if the good fates please, making love, say, the happier they. Draw yourself up from the light of the moon, and let them pass, as they will too soon, with the bean-flower's boon, and the blackbird's tune, and May and June. What I love best in all the world is a castle, precipice encurled, in a gash of the wind-grieved Apennine. Or look for me, old fellow of mine, if I get my head from out the mouth of the grave, and loose my spirit's bands, and come again to the land of lands, in a seaside house to the farther south, where the baked cicala dies of drouth, and one sharp tree, 'tis a cypress, stands, by the many hundred years red rusted, rough iron spiked, ripe fruit o'ercrusted, my sentinel to guard the sands to the water's edge. For what expands before the house but the great opaque blue breadth of sea without a break? While in the house forever crumbles some fragment of the frescoed walls, from blisters where a scorpion sprawls. A girl barefooted brings, and tumbles down on the pavement, green flesh melons, and says there's news to day, the king was shot at, touched in the liver wing, goes with his Bourbon arm a sling. She hopes they have not caught the felons. Italy, my Italy! Queen Mary's saying serves for me, when Fortune's malice lost her Calice. Open my heart, and you will see graved inside of it, Italy. Such lovers old are I and she, so it always was, so shall ever be. End of De Gustibus. This recording is in the public domain.
Donald, by Robert Browning, read for LibriVox.org by Ginger Kukolo. Do you happen to know in Rossshire, Mount Ben, but the name scarce matters. Of the naked fact I am sure enough, though I clothe it in rags and tatters. You may recognize Ben by description. Behind him, a moor's immenseness. Up goes the middle mount of a range, fringed with its firs and denseness. Rimming the edge, its fir fringe mind, for an edge there is, though narrow. From end to end of the range a strip of pass runs straight as an arrow, and the mountaineer who takes that path saves himself miles of journey he has to plod if he crosses the moor through heather, peat, and burnie. But a mountaineer he needs must be, for look you, right in the middle projects bluff Ben, with an end in Ish. Why planted there is a riddle. Since all Ben's brothers, little and big, keep rank, set shoulder to shoulder, and only this burliest out must bulge till it seems, to the beholder, from down in the gully, as if Ben's breast, to a sudden spike diminished, would signify to the boldest foot, all further passage finished. Yet the mountaineer who sidles on, and on to the very bending, discovers, if heart and brain be proof, no necessary ending. Foot up, foot down, to the turn abrupt having trod, he, there arriving, finds, what he took for a point was breadth, a mercy of nature's contriving. So he rounds what, when 'tis reached, proves straight, from one side gains the other, the wee path widens, resume the march, and he fools you, Ben, my brother. But Donald, that name I hope will do, I wrong him if I call foiling, the tramp of the callant, whistling the while, as blithe as our kettle's boiling. He had dared the danger from boyhood up, and now, when perchance was waiting, alas, at the brig below, 'twixt mount and moor would he standing debating? Moreover, this Donald was 25, a glory of bone and muscle. Did a fiend dispute the right of way, Donald would try a tussle. Lightsomely marched he out of the broad on to the narrow and narrow. A step more, rounding the angular rock, reached the front straight as an arrow. He stepped it, safe on the ledge he stood, when, whom found he full facing? What fellow in courage and wariness too had scouted ignoble pacing, and left low safety to timid mates, and made for the dread dear danger, and gained the height where, who could guess, he would meet with a rival ranger? 'Twas a gold red stag that stood and stared, gigantic and magnific. By the wonder, aye, and the peril, struck, intelligent and pacific. For a red deer is no fallow deer, grown cowardly through pork feeding. He batters you like a thunderbolt if you brave his haunts unheeding. I doubt he could hardly perform volte-face, had valor advised discretion. You may walk on a rope, but to turn on a rope no Blondin makes profession. Yet Donald must turn, would pride permit, though pride ill brooks retiring. Each eyed each, mute man, motionless beast, less fearing than admiring. These are the moments when quite new sense, to meet some need as novel, springs up in the brain, it inspired resource, nor advance nor retreat, but grovel. And slowly, surely, never a whit, relaxing the steady tension of eye stare which binds man to beast, by an inch declension, sank Donald sideways down and down, till flat, breast upwards, lying at his 6-foot length, no corpse more still. If he cross me, the trick's worth trying. Minutes were an eternity, but a new sense was created. In the stag's brain too, he resolves, slow sure, with eye stare unabated. Feelingly he extends his foot, which tastes the way ere it touches, earth solid and just escapes man's soft, nor hold of the same unclutches, till its fellow foot, light as a feather whisk, lands itself no less finely. So a mother removes a fly from the face of her babe asleep supinely. And now 'tis the haunch and hind foot's turn. That's hard. Can the beast quite raise it? Yes, traversing half the prostrate length, his hook tip does not graze it. Just one more lift! But Donald, you see, was sportsman first, man after. A fancy lightened his caution through, he well nigh broke into laughter. It were nothing short of a miracle, unrivaled, unexampled. All sporting feats with this feat matched were down and dead and trampled. The last of the legs as tenderly he follows the rest, or never, or now is the time. His knife in reach, and his right hand loose, how clever! For this can stab up the stomach soft, while the left hand grasps the pastern. Arise on the elbow, and now's the time, or never, this turn's the last turn. I shall dare to place myself by God, who scanned, for he does, each feature of the face thrown up in appeal to him by the agonizing creature. Nay, I hear plain words, thy gift brings this. Up he sprang, back he staggered, over he fell, and with him our friend, at following game no laggard. Yet he was not dead when they picked next day from the gully's depth the wreck of him. His fall had been stayed by the stag beneath, who cushioned and saved the neck of him. But the rest of his body, why, doctors said, whatever could break was broken. Legs, arms, ribs, all of him looked like a toast in a tumbler of port wine soaken. "That your life is left you, thank the stag," said they when, the slow cure ended, they opened the hospital door, and thence strapped, spliced, main fractures mended, and minor damage left wisely alone, like an old shoe clouded and cobbled. Out what went in a Goliath well nigh, some half of a David hobbled. You must ask an alms from house to house, sell the stag's head for a bracket. With its grand 12 tines, I'd buy it myself, and use the skin for a jacket. He was wiser, made both head and hide his windpenny, hands and knees on, would manage to crawl, poor crab, by the roads in the misty stalking season. And if he discovered a bothy like this, why, harvest was sure. Folk listened. He told his tale to the lovers of sport, lips twitched, cheeks glowed, eyes glistened. And when he had come to the close and spread his spoils for the gazers' wonder, with, "Gentlemen, here's the skull of the stag, I was over, thank God, not under," the company broke out in applause. "By jingo, a lucky cripple! Have a munch of a grouse, and a hunk of bread, and a tug besides at our tipple." And "There's my pay for your pluck," cried this, "and mine for a jolly story," cried that, while t'other, but he was drunk, hiccuped, "A trump, a Tory!" I hope I gave twice as much as the rest, for, as Homer would say, within great, "Thou teeth kept tongue," my whole soul growled, "rightly rewarded, ingrate." End of Donald. This recording is in the public domain.
Epilogue to Orlando by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by April Gonzalez. Epilogue to Orlando. At midnight in the silence of sleep time, when you set your fancies free, will they pass to where, by death, fools think, imprisoned, low he lies who once so loved you whom you loved so. Pity me? Oh, to love so, be so loved, yet so mistaken! What had I on earth to do with the slothful, with the mawkish, the unmanly, like the aimless, helpless, hopeless, did I drivel, being who? One who never turned his back but marched breast forward, never doubted clouds would break, never dreamed though right were worsted, wrong would triumph, held would fall to rise, or baffled to fight better, sleep to wake. No, at noonday, in the bustle of man's work time, greet the unseen with a cheer, bid him forward, breast and back as either should be, strive and thrive, cry, speed, fight on, fare ever, there as here. End of Epilogue to Orlando. This recording is in a public domain.
Gold Hair, A Story of Pornic by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Amanda Brewer. Oh, the beautiful girl, too white, who lived at Pornic, down by the sea, just where the sea and the Loire unite, and a boasted name in Brittany she bore, which I will not write. Too white, for the flower of life is red. Her flesh was the soft, seraphic screen of a soul that is meant, her parents said, to just see earth and hardly be seen, and blossom in heaven instead. Yet earth saw one thing, one how fair, one grace that grew to its full on earth. Smiles might be sparse on her cheek so spare, and her waist want half a girdle's girth, but she had her great gold hair. Hair such a wonder of flicks and floss, freshness and fragrance, floods of it too. Gold, did I say? Nay, gold's mere dross. Here, life smiled, think what I meant to do, and love sighed, fancy my loss. So when she died, it was scarce more strange than that, when some delicate evening dies, and you follow its spent sun's pallid range, there's a shoot of colour startles the skies with sudden violent change, that, while the breath was nearly to seek, as they put the little cross to her lips, she changed, a spot came out on her cheek, a spark from her eye in mid-eclipse, and she broke forth, I must speak. Not my hair, made the girl her moan, all the rest is gone or to go. But the last, last grace, my all, my own, let it stay in the grave, that the ghosts may know. Leave my poor gold hair alone. The passion thus vented, dead lay she. Her parents sobbed their worst on that. All friends joined in, nor observed degree, for indeed the hair was to wonder at, as it spread, not flowing free, but curled around her brow like a crown, and coiled beside her cheeks like a cap, and calmed about her neck, aye, down to her breast, pressed flat without a gap, is the gold, it reached her gown. All kissed that face like a silver wedge, mid the yellow wealth, nor disturbed its hair. Even the priest allowed death's privilege, as he planted the crucifix with care on her breast, twixt edge and edge. And thus was she buried, inviolate of body and soul, in the very space by the altar, keeping saintly state, in Pornic church, for her pride of race, pure life, and piteous fate. And in after time would your fresh tear fall, though your mouth might twitch with a dubious smile, as they told you of gold both robe and pall, how she prayed them leave it alone a while, so it never was touched at all. Years flew, this legend grew at last, the life of the lady, all she had done, all been, in the memories fading fast, of lover and friend, was summed in one sentence, survivors past. To wit, she was meant for heaven, not earth, had turned an angel before the time, yet since she was mortal, in such dearth of frailty, all you could count a crime was she knew her gold hair's worth. At little pleasant Pornic church it chanced the pavement wanted repair, was taken to pieces, left in the lurch, a certain sacred space lay bare, and the boys began research. 'Twas the space where our sires would lay a saint, a benefactor, a bishop, suppose, a baron with armor adornments quaint, a dame with chased ring and jeweled rose, things sanctity saves from taint. So we come to find them in after days, when the corpse is presumed to have done with gods of use to the living, in many ways, for the boys get pelf, and the town applauds, and the church deserves the praise. They grubbed with a will, and at length, O cor humanum, pectora sica, and the rest. They found no gods they were prying for, no ring, no rose, but who would have guessed? A double louis d'or. Here was a case for the priest. He heard, marked, inwardly digested, laid finger on nose, smiled. A little bird chirps in my ear. Then, bring a spade, dig deeper, he gave the word. And lo, when they came to the coffin lid, or the rotten planks which composed it once, why, there lay the girl's skull wedged amid a mint of money. It served for the nonce to hold in its hair heaps hid. Hid there? Why? Could the girl be wont, she, the stainless soul, to treasure up money, earth's trash, and heaven's affront? Had a spider found out the communion cup? Was a toad in the christening font? Truth is truth. Too true it was. Gold. She hoarded and hugged it first, longed for it, leaned over it, loved it, alas, till the humor grew to a head and burst. And she cried at the final pass, "Talk not of God, my heart is stone, nor lover nor friend be gold for both. Gold I lack, and my all, my own, it shall hide in my hair. I scarce die loth, if they let my hair alone." Louis d'ors, some 6 times 5, and duly double every piece. Now do you see, with the priest to shrive, with parents preventing her soul's release, by kisses that kept alive. With heaven's gold gates about to ope, with friends' praise gold-like lingering still, an instinct had bidden the girl's hand grope for gold, the true sort, gold in heaven, if you will. But I keep earth's too, I hope. Enough, the priest took the grave's grim yield. The parents, they eyed that price of sin, as if 30 pieces lay revealed on the place to bury strangers in, the hideous potter's field. But the priest bethought him, "Milk that's spilt, you know the adage, watch and pray. Saints tumble to earth with so slight a tilt. It would build a new altar, that we may." And the altar therewith was built. Why I deliver this horrible verse? As the text of a sermon which now I preach. Evil or good may be better or worse in the human heart, but the mixture of each is a marvel and a curse. The candid incline to surmise of late that the Christian faith may be false, I find, for our essays and reviews debate begins to tell on the public mind, and Colenso's words have weight. I still, to suppose it true, for my part, see reasons and reasons. This, to begin, 'tis the faith that launched point blank her dart at the head of a lie, taught original sin, the corruption of man's heart. End of Gold Hair, a story of Pornic. This recording is in the public domain.